2023, we are talking about the Wineglass Marathon this year. This is a super popular Boston qualifier event. If you don't know the times listed for your Boston qualifier event this year, here's a quick rundown for men over in this column and women in this column right here. So women are here, men are here, and you can also see the age groups right through here. We also have a non-binary category where you can qualify right there, and that is your Boston qualifier times. Keep that in mind as we talk about this for the video here. And without further ado, let's dig into some nitty-gritty details. First up, make sure you head over to the website. Quick tip on the website. Make sure that you are heading over to the main marathon page, and they also have important information if you keep scrolling down. You just have to keep scrolling down all the way to the facts, and it will actually link you up to pages that you can't access outright. So back on the main website page, of course, this race is happening the 1st of October. Start time is 8:15, and of course, it is a Boston qualifier. That's why we are talking about it here. Quick rundown of the chart. It is pretty much a downward angled race for the majority of the race, with some exceptions and some caveats to which we are going to be talking about. Transportation for the race. All runners have to take the bus to the start line, and you can't drive there, you can't walk there, you have to take the bus. A couple of locations where you can do that is if you are in the Corning area, it's going to take you about 30 minutes. The departure area is right here, and the trip duration is going to last about 30 minutes. Window of opportunity is 5:30 to 7 a.m. and the last bus happens at 7 a.m. because the race start happens at 8:15 for those people that are paying attention here. Other area where you can go is this place, Plutnery Park, and that's going to take you about 5 minutes to go, and that is a little bit closer to the start line itself. Only a 5-minute trip, but the last bus is at 7:30. Awards are listed here. Categories are broken down through their course records here. Male, female. Male is a 2:20, and the female record here is a 2:44, and the Masters male 2:29, with the Masters female a 2:44 marathon. As I mentioned earlier, make sure you head over and just keep scrolling down this page here. You will get a lot of your questions answered right through here. You can link to some pretty key pieces of info. One of the biggest key pieces of info for your event spectators, your Super Sherpas, are the race trackers here. This is the Race Joy. Make sure that you follow the links here. You can download it in the App Store. And when they walk you through some helpful tips and tricks to help make sure that everything is working on race day, so you have the full race day experience here. Setting up your profile, tracking, setup. They also have a RaceJoy user tutorial here. So that is our app that you can download. It is also on App Store and Google Play, I am being informed. Next thing here is the spectator guide, which will be linked from the RaceJoy page there. Talks about specific places for you to hit. Make sure you stay away from some key areas. For the spectators, make sure you view that ahead of time. So the Expo Bib and Packet Pickup, the 29th and the 30th. This is the opportunity to do that. The 29th, you can do it from 11 to 7, and the 30th, 9 to 6. What to bring is your identification, a valid photo ID. Someone other than yourself may pick up your bib on your behalf, but that person must show verification. Acceptable verification includes your confirmation number or a signed letter indicating your approval. A photo ID is required for that. So that's a cool little thing that you can do at this race here. They talk about some vendors, things like that. Make sure you head over there so you can see all the cool stuff that is happening at the Expo. There are marathon pacers here. We have the 3:10, 20, 25, and it goes all the way up to a 5 hour. So if you are interested in that, all these guys have linkable hyperlinks under their name. You can contact them, you can reach out to them. Chances are they're going to meet at a specific spot on race morning. So if you are interested in something like that, you might want to reach out to them so you can be on your goal time. So for instance, those times that we referenced earlier, if you are a 3-hour or 3:30 person, you might want to email this person right here and just see what the rundown is. If they can just find, or you can just find them on race day, or if they're going to meet at a specific location before the race starts. And if you have any questions or if these people aren't getting back to you, there is a head person right here. This is our course that we are going to be attacking on race day. This is the start over here, a point-to-point race, largely a downhill race with a couple of wild cards thrown in for your joy on race day. And we'll talk about how to handle all of that in a second. But first up, we have to identify our water and aid stations out on course. So the teardrops are the water stations here. We have mileage markers. We also have portable johns at a lot of places on this spot. There's also viewing spots that are marked for you, which is great to see at this. So we have a couple of aid stations coming fast and furious, and it looks to be they're about every 2 miles apart, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less in some instances. And if you do click on some of these, the facts down over here, we can find the course stations. You can get through it kind of through the event info area, but you can't really, so make sure you click on some of those downward questions and you can get here yourself. So the aid stations are going to be at mile 7.8, 13.3, 17.8, 21.5, and mile 23 here. It is a little bit confusing. I don't know what is specifically going to be at these aid stations, if they are just purely aid, or if they're going to have just electrolytes or something other than water. So make sure you ask that at the event check-in or at the expo when you do check in there. The course fluid, the replenished drink at this one, is raspberry lemonade Huma hydration electrolytes. It will be made up at each station from powdered mix. Hopefully this is at every aid station, so a quick search of that on Amazon. This is a one serving this is a quick little package of it, right? And so if this is the real thing and this is what you're getting at every aid station, this is going to be awesome. You have a ton of sodium in here, right? And you don't have a lot of calories here. So let me just highlight that for everybody so you can see what I'm saying. So sodium here, we only have 10 calories per that, but we do have a lot of electrolytes mixed in here, and that's going to be hugely important on race day. But because there's only 10 calories in here, you might want to think about fueling with some additional resources other than just this. Don't fall into this trap on race day, because if this is all you fuel with, you're not going to have enough calories. Pretty much whoever you are, not a dietitian, but someone with a lot of experience there. There's also going to be, if we go back to the course page here, there's also going to be gels at mile 7.8, 13.3, and mile 19. So again, a quick search of that via the direct link. These are what the results are for the Huma gels, the original ones, not the plus ones. So if this is what they have on course, this is a pretty decent gel for you on race day. 100 calories per serving. We also have another 100 milligrams of sodium there. So again, a lot of electrolytes, very easily available for you on race day. So no one should be cramping too much if you're fueling kind of in the neighborhood of what you should be. Something that is a little bit different with these gels are these protein grams here. We have 1 gram of protein per gel packet. So if you're not used to taking these taking additional protein in here, if you're not careful and you have 3 or 4 in an hour, you will have a little bit more protein than what is typical for most gels or most people when they are running. So you just want to be careful. Again, not a dietitian, but again, someone with a little bit of experience in this field. So just be careful with that. And if you are worried about it a little bit, you might want to split the difference, bring a couple of gels yourself, and don't overthink it. But if they do have the the raspberry lemonade packs at every aid station, and this is, I mean, you might not be getting all of this in here for each serving or each aid station that you get, but even if it's like a third or a half or even 2/3 of that, that's a good um, level of electrolytes for race day. So no one should be getting too hurt out there electrolyte wise. The big thing that you do have to worry about is your calorie count and also the protein if you're not used to running with that. If you have planned ahead and you are already running with some of these gels here, you've done a couple long runs with them, that would be really, really great. So again, just be careful if you're taking 3 or 4 per hour and you haven't trained on that. Just watch out, something to think about, okay? And again, ask them what is happening at each one and ask them to clarify it a little bit different for you, because when we do look at the map here, it's not super clear what's happening at each aid station. So just ask that when you get out there. And now let's kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty details of the race course here. So this is our race course kind of broken down a little bit better for the eye. And what you can see here is a couple of different things. And I'm going to split this up into a couple different categories. Area number 1 is this right here, right out of the gate. Area number 2 is leading up to here. Area number 3 is pretty much this entire hill, up and down, believe it or not. And area number 4 extends all the way until mile 20, so that is a huge critical area. And then area number 5 is up until the finish line. So let's dive into a couple of quick things that you do need to watch out for, and we're going to highlight the first 3 right out of the gate. So anytime you highlight this, it's important to take a look at max gradient, elevation gain, elevation loss. And again, this is primarily a net downhill race. But if we back up our highlighted section here to the first, let's call it 0.7 miles, we don't have a lot of net loss here. All right, so this is pretty standard for most marathons coming out of the gate. And what will not be standard is the paces that you will be seeing. It's going to be very common, very easy for you to just come flying out of the gate, and I caution you against doing that. I'm not saying we can't go fast, but you need to be very in control and aware of what's happening for this first 0.7 miles. If you overdo it here, your race isn't done. You're just potentially setting yourself up for failure later on. Not the end of the world if you do go out too hard. You just need to manage things a little bit differently. All right. So moving on to section number 2 here. Again, we are moving the highlighted area. This section is about a 4-mile section here. Max grade is a 0.6, so not a lot of super steep hills. It's not going to last for very long. Elevation gain of about 20 feet with a loss of about 55 feet as written here. Again, this is going to be another area where you can go fast, and you absolutely should go fast with an asterisk. Okay, don't go fast just for the sake of going fast here. You're not giving your race away if you're running in control here. You should be running in control. The paces should be naturally higher, but the average gradient is only a negative 0.2%. Okay. So what you need to be doing at this point in time of the race, and again, it's only the first 4.5 miles here. So you really need to watch your form, watch where everything's going out in front of you. What usually happens at a race like this is athletes just forget their running form and they let their feet just drift out in front of them. They forget what's going on with their hands and they let their core go. All right. You want to be really engaged on this course, and your core is going to be your best friend and your worst nightmare, depending on what you're doing. If you're just letting things kind of go or this early on and you're only concerned about speed right here, again, you're setting yourself up for failure. We want you to go fast, but we want you to do so in control. Okay, it's useless to totally bomb this area and just do so without engaging your core or having proper form or doing all the necessary movement patterns that you have been doing leading up until this point to get here in your training. Okay, don't forget it. It's there for a reason. The next section, section number 3, is this hill that it's on everybody's mind out here. And it is not a make or break hill. It's one of the only major hills out on course, obviously here. And if we back this up a little bit more, this is a a 2-mile section, and I've highlighted the whole hill for a couple of reasons. Again, max gradient here is 1.8%. Let's call it 2. Elevation is 65 gain and 73 loss. So again, kind of in the neighborhood of even here. We do have a net loss of about, let's call it 6 feet, 7 feet here. And again, everybody's GPS is going to be a little bit different at these 2 points here. So what you need to be doing here is attacking this hill, but again, staying in control. It's okay to go a little bit harder out here. Those using power meters are going to have a little bit higher power here for sure, because it's uphill, right? You've been running downhill largely up until this point, so the power is going to naturally be higher, and the pace is going to naturally be a little bit slower. The problem lies when you start to chase some of these paces here without thinking, right? Let's zoom in to our hill here so we can dissect it a lot. So it's going to start off with a soft ramp here of about 3%, and then it's going to kick up right at about 4.8-ish miles to that 1.4, 1.6% that we see here. It's going to continue to rise up here, and it's going to kick up again to a 1.8%. So this is kind of a rolling uphill, and it goes again and again and again with that max gradient of about 1.92% here. This is a manageable hill, and it's a hill that you can absolutely demolish. You want to go hard up this hill, but you want to save your legs for later on. As we go down the back side of this hill, back through here, again, we're going to totally undo all this elevation gain that we have with one of our steepest declines out on course, which is a negative 3.5% downhill. All right, probably a 4% as well. I'm seeing that here now. Now, you want to be in control here. Watch your form here, and this is probably one of the last major times I'm going to say that here leading up to mile 6.5, because once we hit mile 6.5, you need to be ready to rock and roll. The training wheels have kind of come off, and this first 6.5 miles is about setting up the next 13, let's call it, right? Up until mile 20, this is a super long stretch here, 13.5 miles here. Elevation gain, 145, 150 feet. We do have 291 to, let's call it 300 feet of elevation loss. So again, there is a substantial amount of elevation loss here. But there's also a little bit more climbing that you want as well, okay? So again, this is going to be the time to go. It is the time to set yourself up for race day success up until mile 20. So things you need to worry about in those first 6.5 miles. A is your running form, your pace or power, depending on what you're using, or heart rate, whatever it is, right? And also your nutrition, right? If we go back to that course nutrition, if it is only those first couple of aid stations, right? I believe there's 2 before the halfway point, or there's 1, and then the second one is at the halfway point, if I remember correctly. So at that first aid station with the powder that we talked about earlier, that becomes a necessity. That becomes a can't miss aid station, and even the halfway one, another cannot miss aid station, because that's going to happen right around here. And so you don't have a lot of opportunities to fuel for the first half of that race as it's written and as I'm understanding it. And if the powder is available at every aid station, you can kind of skip this part. But if it's not, those first couple aid stations are cannot miss. Absolutely cannot miss. You need to get the electrolytes in for sure here. And I believe there's 3 more up until the finish line, so there's a little more opportunity to fuel later on as it gets closer to the finish line. And those aid stations should not be, absolutely necessities as we hit those later ones. You need to prioritize them in the first half, right? And we have limited opportunities to do so. So again, if you run with a gel or a little hydro flask, anything like that for that first half of the marathon, it's going to be critical for you. And depending on what they tell you at the expo area, you might want to think about burning the bottle there in that first half or the first 2/3 of this race, and using the encore stuff for the last third of the race. But again, that would be my strategy. During this section here, form absolutely critical. This is kind of our go section here. This is our fast area for sure. Use the downhills to ride some of the uphills, absolutely. And all of this should be kind of a build section. So what I mean by that is you should slowly start to just ramp the pace up here. You know, when you get down this downhill, you set yourself up for success. You didn't totally blow the quads on that downhill. And you should be slowly increasing the pace or ratcheting it up again and again and again. If you're feeling very confident at the bottom of that downhill right here at mile 6.5 or scratch that, I believe it's later at mile, 6.5. Then you can go at race pace right there if you're feeling totally good. But if there's any inkling of, I don't know if I can hold that till the finish line, you need to back off for a little while and slowly ramp it up. And again, we're starting from a higher pace anyways, faster rate of speed. So by the time we get to mile 20, our last section, again, you should not be totally crushed because mile 20 is actually where the race really happens right here. This isn't all totally accurate right here, these elevation readings, but it's pretty close of what you're going to see on race day. Mile 20, you're going to have about 120 feet of gain and 130 feet of loss. So this is pretty even out here. Max gradient of 2.1 and an average gradient of -3. So it still drops off, right? But there's still a lot of climbing to do for this course in the last 6.5 miles, six and a half. So once you get to mile 20, your race is not done, and a lot of people will fall apart when they enter this zone, and it's because of what they failed to do for the first 20 miles. So be smart out there nutritionally, be smart out there pace-wise, and if you're running, say, an 8:20 pace in training or an 8:10 pace in training, and that whole 6.5 or 13.5 mile stretch, right, you were holding 740s, 730s, 720s, doing something very unrealistic. Expect the wall to happen right through here, okay? Again, I don't want that to happen, but it's very, very common here for athletes chasing best times or things like that, and them to totally hit the wall mile 22 when the terrain starts flattening out. Also, it just gets hard to keep activating your core and just be mentally on, right? You want to keep driving that rate of speed, so when the terrain flattens out, naturally you want to keep chasing those speeds that you were holding for such a long time, and that is not realistic, especially at this point in the race for most people. That's where major problems start to happen. So as you're going up the hill, don't be afraid to have the pace drop back a couple seconds per mile. Don't sky your heart rate during this section for the first 2-3 miles of this section, but afterwards it's kind of go time. Once you hit mile 22.5, 23, it's kind of go time after that. It's all in your head right there. But use those 13.5 miles preceding this section to set yourself up and put yourself in a position where you can realistically hit the BQ or a personal best time, okay? Keep fueling. Keep on your nutrition strategies. It's going to be very important out on race day. And that is the Wineglass kind of breakdown in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Always happy to help you. If you have any coaching needs or any coaching questions, I'm also available there. So please like, subscribe, and share, and good luck to everyone at our 2023 event this year.